मेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दिनुते गिरिवरविन्द्य शिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते.
Hi guys, just 2 days back I had made a video basically addressing Indian right-wingers to not align themselves with American left-wingers or European left-wingers, because left-wing politics, regardless of where they are, is detrimental to India, India's progress, Hindus, everything. And funnily enough, I got a strong example to back up that claim today. If you all don't know already, in 1965 when Singapore became independent, their socialist dictator Lee Kuan Yew, who became a very pro-market guy because he realized that it's not working out, his socialist plans, he had exclaimed, he had made a remark in 1965 that he wants his city-state, Singapore, to become as fascinating, as great as Calcutta. He wanted Singapore to become Calcutta. That was the reference point of Calcutta in 1965, which I'm sure you will realize how hilarious that sounds today, based on Singapore standing today in the world and Calcutta standing today even in India. Why is that? Because obviously Nehru's deindustrialization policies carried forward happily by Jyoti Basu, which was almost reversed by Buddhist Bhattacharya, but then he was countered successfully by left-wing academics, intellectuals, actors and actresses, students, all of whom backed up a party further left of the CPIM, and we continued our decline. And today a day has come when an American conservative nationalist political commentator thinker is saying that he wants Singapore's laws in USA. That's how American left-wingers are destroying USA itself. Now you might argue that yes, that's why you would like to support American leftists, because they harm America to such an extent. Well, you could hope for that in your personal life, in your personal conversations, but you can't hold that position publicly. You can't act on that position by amplifying American leftist voices, because there's one big problem in this. Left-wingers everywhere are united in their policies. So whatever they advocate for in USA, in the hope of knowingly or unknowingly destroying the American system, government, etc., they are going to do those same things, apply them in India, try to apply them in India, and hope to destroy the Indian way of life, Indian government, Indian religious majority, everything. So let's check out what Matt Walsh says about Singapore and how much I agree or disagree with that position in the first place. Because on this I actually don't have a very significant stand. I haven't thought about it much. I would be fascinated to hear what are your thoughts on this, assuming you all have given it a deep thought. Let's check it out. Now listen to the entire section I play and notice how Cautillian his recommendations sound and how Cautillian Singapore's laws on this sound. Because Chanakya was all about, you did this, let's cut your fingernails off. You did this, let's cut your fingers off. You did this, let's cut your thumb out. You did this, you get 40 lashes of these things. So Chanakya was pretty harsh on those punishments. I don't think we are going to have those laws in India in any time soon. But Singapore does exactly that. And American is asking for exactly that. So this is going to be hilarious to watch. The context is that Kulinski, a left-wing social democrat YouTuber, he made a video criticizing Matt Walsh, who is a conservative, for recommending Singapore's harsh treatment of drug dealers in American laws as well. So Matt Walsh is now countering Kulinski and saying why he was right, and we will get to Kyle's exact statement as well.
You're wrong, but that's okay. You can be wrong. My problem is not that people simply disagree with my proposal, but that they treat the mere notion of harsher penalties for criminals as somehow absurd on its face. They recoil at the suggestion that those who traffic substances that kill thousands every year should be given the same punishment that we already give to other kinds of murderers. They scream out in horror at the...
He's saying murderers and drug dealers should have the same punishments because drug dealers are, at the end of the day, leading to someone's death in some way or the other, maybe sooner or later.
Idea that perhaps we should sentence robbers and thieves to corporal punishment rather than letting them hang out in prison for a few months.
Corporal punishment, exactly what Chanakya has recommended in Arthashastra.
And then releasing them right back into the community with no additional penalties. You know, this is the issue. You're not a stupid person for listening to my argument, finding it unpersuasive, and making a counter-argument. That's fine. But you are, frankly, pretty damn stupid if my argument is so shocking to you that you can barely articulate.
This is why we need decoloniality. We can't say that what he's saying is definitely wrong. Or we shouldn't say that he's definitely wrong because he's a right-winger. Or because he's a white man. Because I have a decolonial lens. Because I have decolonial reading. Therefore, I would not give him the credit for this. I would not give Singapore the credit for this. I know that this has been recommended in Arthashastra. This is why we need decoloniality.
If you think it's so unthinkably extreme that it isn't necessary to articulate a response. That kind of reaction to a perfectly reasonable suggestion One with a massive amount of historical precedent shows a lack of thought on your part and an inability to even entertain any challenge to modern orthodoxies, because that's really the problem, right? Is that what I'm saying flies in the face of our kind of generally accepted notions of how to deal with criminals. And for that reason alone, many people are upset by it. And they can't explain really why. It just doesn't comport with what they've always been told and sort of the general atmosphere that they live in. Speaking of people who can barely articulate a response, that brings us to YouTuber Kyle Kulinski, who's the owner of the Secular Talk channel on YouTube. And like most YouTubers on the left, every so often Kyle likes to use my name to drive engagement. And every so often I will respond because, well, I can't help but take the bait. So yesterday, Kyle put out a video titled "Matt Walsh's Fascist Mask Slips on Twitter." And he's part of the mob, terribly upset about my comments, though he, like the rest of them, can't quite explain why. Now, most of Kyle's video consists of him calling me stupid and authoritarian while making incredulous facial expressions. Not really a counter-argument, not much to respond to, but I did want to address one part of it, and it's this part. Listen.
Singapore is able to have nice things in part because they execute drug dealers by hanging and arrest even petty vandals and thieves and beat them with a cane until they bleed. We don't have nice things because we aren't willing to do what is required to maintain them. And then he goes on to say, there are some accusing me of advocating similar laws in this country, and I just want to clarify that yes, absolutely I want those laws in this country. Okay, Matt Walsh is an authoritarian. And it's hilarious because the Daily Wire, Matt Walsh, and others like to go after the left and say, oh, the left are authoritarians and they hate freedom, bro. They hate liberty, bro. You hate freedom. You hate liberty. Part of...
I will say that it's pretty funny as a non-American to watch these people fall into their traps of what they think are group rights and what are individual rights. Because now Kyle Kulinski is going to accuse Walsh of not believing in individual rights enough, and Matt Walsh is going to have to explain that no bro, this does not go against individualism.
Freedom is being able to put in your body whatever you want to put in your body as long as you're not hurting anybody else. Being able to sell said substances. In the same way, I don't think we should be hauling away the CEO of Budweiser in handcuffs. I don't think you should haul away the weed dealer.
He's saying then arrest all pharmaceutical company executives, all alcohol company executives, because they are also dealing in things that often end up killing you.
Execute drug dealers. All right, dog. You want to start? Go find the CEO of Pfizer and Moderna. Go find the guys who make Xanax.
Okay, sounds good to me. I mean, yeah, we'd have to give the big pharma executives a fair trial, of course, convict them in a court of law.
Yeah. Matt Walsh has never said that those drug dealers need to be beaten up without a fair trial.
Once that's been done, I absolutely would want them to face the same penalty that should be imposed on any other drug trafficker. See, Kyle, you're not going to trip me up by demanding that I take my arguments to their logical conclusions, because I will always do that. I'm not afraid of doing that. That's the advantage to being logically consistent. Okay, so when you say, well, if that's how you feel, then that would lead to this. Sure, sounds good to me. Let's do that too. It's an advantage of being logically consistent that you yourself do not enjoy, because you have already made a number of statements that I'm quite sure you would not want to apply with total consistency. So you say that part of freedom is not only being able to put whatever you want into your body, but also being able to sell anything that someone else might want to put in their body. Now, here's the problem. This argument already assumes that freedom is itself the highest good, and therefore literally anything that falls under the banner of freedom is automatically good and should be permissible.
See where decoloniality comes in.
But that's a case you need to make. Okay, you can't merely assume that. You haven't made it here, or as far as I know.
He's challenging the premises of Kyle first. While debating leftists, always remember, challenge their premises, not the argument. First clear the doubts about the premises, then get to the argument. Because they always base their arguments on flimsy and absolutely bullcrap premises.
See, I don't believe that freedom is the highest good. I don't think that the ideal society is one where people are simply able to do whatever.
Oh my God. A supporter of the Republican Party, American conservative, people who pride themselves on building up an individual rights, individual responsibility oriented society, they are ending up having to say these things
all the time. I don't really think that you think that either, actually. I'm quite sure that there are things that you would say people should not be free to do.
The balance between group rights and individual rights. both are important to some extent.
I'm quite sure of that. And yet your whole argument rests on simply labeling drug trafficking part of freedom. So already we have a number of logical inconsistencies and sort of half-baked ideas. But let's talk about drug traffickers for a moment. Now, you keep making you want to make this about weed, first of all. And
Weed meaning marijuana.
I noticed that with all the people that are arguing with me. Talk about drug traffickers. All they want to do is talk about weed. They bring it right to weed. I didn't specifically say that. I said drug traffickers.
Remember how Rajiv Gandhi, Nixon, that was a time when weed got banned in India, and because we didn't have our decolonial cultural identity in place, intact, rock solid, that's why we said, okay, you have to ban. We'll get rid of it as well. Okay, that's when the American conservatives were against these things. They still are to a large extent.
And you do that because you know you'd sound ridiculous defending fentanyl dealers on the basis of freedom. Okay, so you go for the easiest form of the argument you can find, and you want to make this about marijuana.
Yes, because Matt Walsh has not been making this majorly about marijuana, but he is mainly talking about hard chemical drugs. But Kyle is making it sound like as if Matt Walsh will end up applying those on marijuana as harshly. Let's see if Matt Walsh does it.
But I'm not going to let you off the hook that easily. So let's focus on fentanyl dealers for a moment. They traffic and profit off of poison, just straight up poison that destroys the lives of thousands of people and kills thousands more. And you say this is okay because the people who use it want to. They want to use it, so that makes it okay. Well, why does their desire to use the drug automatically make it okay to sell it? Is that the standard? Anything that somebody might want to use is automatically okay to sell? Is that really how you think the law should work? And again, your argument rests on an assumption that you haven't actually defended or explained, which is that freedom is the highest good. It's a good in and of itself, and anything that can be labeled freedom automatically should be allowed to happen. Besides, even if the fentanyl user has consented, the entire rest of the community, plagued by the filth and crime and violence the drug causes, have not consented.
Group rights over individual rights.
The dealer might consent, the user might consent, we'll get to that in a second, but the people forced to live in communities utterly ravaged by this poison do not consent to it. The people who are hopped up on these drugs and then they run to a subway platform and throw an old lady in front of the train.
By community, Americans mean a neighborhood. A drug infested neighborhood. Wahan kisne kisko consent diya hai?
She didn't consent to that. She didn't consent to being a part of this. She didn't consent to living in a city that's the walking dead with drug zombies walking around. Oh, and also, by the way, the user doesn't consent either. They're addicts. They're not making clear choices. They are acting out of desperation and compulsion and addiction. The dealers and...
Well, the user did consent on the very first day before getting addicted, so Matt Walsh is not entirely correct here. But anyway, this was a fun experience in seeing why one should not align themselves with leftists of anywhere on the planet Earth. Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyaka Pardini